This is Sportish.
Do it better.
This is Sportish. This is Sportish. This is Sportish. This is Sportish.
This is Sportish. My name is Geoff Brault. He's Dr. Keith Strudler, the director of the School of Communication and Media at Montclair State University. Big shout out to our producer, Mike Wallace. And on behalf of all three of us, good afternoon, everybody. Big news, Keith Strudler. Big news. Sportish is now on in the daylight hours.
Yeah. There's two things I want to get off the table right on the top here. One is good news, and the other, of course, is the elephant in the side over here that we're gonna have to address. All right. The good news, obviously, is we are now a noon show.
Yep.
Thursdays at noon. You got nothing else to do. There's literally no excuse. You are either working from home, at which point work from home is flexible work hours. We all know that. That's the new law of the land. Secondly, everyone's got to take a lunch hour. Everyone has to eat. There is no better way to enjoy your lunch, your sandwich, your sushi, whatever it is you're putting down with this. It goes down a lot better with Sportish. So that's the good news, obviously. And of course, you'll be able to find our content everywhere, which you will illuminate on later on in the show, which you do every episode, of all the great ways they can watch Sportish and listen to Sportish. But I do need to get something out of the way. And this is kind of the elephant. I mean, we've been on YouTube now for a couple of weeks.
2 weeks. We've been on YouTube for 2 weeks.
And we started pretty good. Like, it started with a kind of something of a bang. All the episodes were loaded up, and the most recent episode just shot up the chart. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How many views? How many views we get on that first episode?
74.
Correct.
Still something somewhat smaller than one might expect for a show of this magnitude on this many networks. But I just attribute it to the fact we haven't pushed it. There's not a ton of followers on FTF on their YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. I almost feel like maybe if we just started playing lacrosse during the program, we might get some more viewership. I'll tell you what people do like. They do like themselves some Cornell Penn State lacrosse. They do like that. And so regardless, 74 is a great start.
Yep.
The problem is people consume 74 people, or as you pointed out, perhaps one person 74 times consume the program. Unfortunately, the appetite seems to have been suppressed as of the most recent view. And what I'm not going to do is try to artificially grow the numbers. I'm not going to play that game. And I don't know if you can, to be quite honest. I may know my computer already. 12 was the second. So we've gone from 74 to 12. It's about 15% is where we are.
It was just 8% more than I thought we'd retain.
So I don't know who to address this with. I mean, I guess you're watching. If you're watching this, this is like when you yell at one of your kids for something that the other kid has done. Like, or have you ever been yelled at as an athlete? No, because you've never been an athlete, but sometimes you get yelled at as an athlete for something that someone else on the team has done. You see this in basketball all the time, where the coach is just tearing into some guy on the bench because some guy committed a stupid foul. I feel like right now we're yelling at the people who are doing us right, who are actually watching the show. So I don't want to be angry at you viewers who are consuming us either on YouTube or on the show or whatever, but you do need, look, this show, I mean, it's on a knife's edge. We're here now. There's no guarantee sport is going to last forever. There's no guarantee that the big brass up at headquarters at the on the penthouse floor is going to continue to bring you this content. It's an expensive show to produce, and so you can. So, if you want what you're seeing here, if you want more of this, you're going to have to make sure we can't do it ourselves. You're the Army. You're going to have to go out and help us do it. So just do what you need to do. Make this happen.
I am going to chastise the people that are here with us right now. And in case you can't follow, Sportish now premieres Thursdays at 12 noon on For the Fans. So you can catch it on DirecTV, ATT-Uverse, a number of over-the-top cable systems. If you don't happen to have one of those,
Samsung TV, everything.
Yeah, it's on the Verizon Fios.
Yeah, everything.
But worst comes to worst. You don't know what that is. You don't know if you have it. You can't find it. You can go to ftfnext.com and you can watch the live stream there. You can also catch archived versions at ftfnext.com or through the FTF app. The show's audio is always available as a podcast. Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, whatever. Now, as Keith mentions, we are on YouTube. And we would like, mostly because YouTube is the one platform that has publicly available view counts, we would like you to experience the show on YouTube. And so now I'm going to talk to the people that are watching us right now, whether it's as a premiere or in one of those other archived fashions. Sportish is like the inception of talk shows. You cannot just experience it once, right? Every time you tune into an episode, you're going to peel back another layer from this onion. So if you think that you listen to the first episode, and you're like, oh, well, all right, I get it. They were talking about their irrational fears. And then Keith went on some weird tangent about the Transformers. And Jeff knows a great movie that Tommy Lee Jones was in. I got what I needed to get at it. No. Did you catch that the first letter of every word we said spelled out the moon landing was a hoax? Did you catch that the first time you watched? Because I don't know that you did. So you need to make sure that when you consume an episode of Sportish in any form, whichever form you consume, that you are then picking a second form to consume it in. There are puzzles and Easter eggs hidden inside every episode, and your life will be richer if you find them all. So find them all in all forms. Watch Sportish, not just once.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, I mean, look, we're going to stay here as long as they let us stay on the air, but I'm telling you, don't think of this like an NPR fund drive. Fresh air is not a guaranteed right? Fresh air is not we'll pull it right off. I mean, you saw what happened to Car Talk. It's not on anymore, right? We'll pull this stuff. Granted, they retired, but that you know how this works out. We're not able to do a fundraiser or a telethon, namely because we're not a nonprofit at all. So it'd be literally illegal for us to do this. But I'm just telling you, you should be consuming this like I'm consuming my new favorite TV show. You know what that is?
No, I don't. Is this the part where you come up with some crazy show that no one's ever seen?
No, we've all seen this. My Lottery Dream House.
Okay, it's a fine show. Yeah.
You just won the lottery. 6 numbers have changed your life. I love that show. And then they walk them through like, how'd you win? They're like, well, I was pretty much broke and I spent my last $50 on one scratch off. Mm-hmm. There should be another show. All the people that did not win the lottery who are now broke. Like, they should do that show of all the people who spent their entire paychecks playing the lottery and did not win. But I love Lottery Dream House because it's such a happy show. Like it's such a feel good show because a lot of times these people are like, it's not just about the exorbitant like $1 million houses, but it's like these people who have, a lot of them had, tough breaks and, it hasn't always gone well. And they finally have the ability to buy a house. Often it's a modest house, but to them, it is their dream house. And I find that show very uplifting, right? Compared to a lot of the reality television where it's just about greed. I find it to be very uplifting. What I am waiting for on that show is for someone to be like, so how much you win? They'd be like, I just won $2 million. So how much you going to spend? I'm going to spend all of it. In fact, I'll tell you what, I think I'm going to go a little over. I'm feeling pretty lucky. I might play the numbers again tonight. So let's go to 3 and I'll try to win that part of it. So that's my new vice. That's my new midnight to 1 a.m. vice when I can't sleep.
Well, and also it's important to have a midnight to 1 a.m. vice because again, Sportish is no longer on at midnight. You cannot see Sportish at midnight on Wednesday. If you go looking for this show on For the Fans, midnight Wednesday, you know what you're going to see? Poker reruns. You're not going to see Sportish. Sportish now debuts at noon on Thursday. I don't care what you have to put a note in your phone calendar, a sticky note on the front door. I don't care what you have to do if you take nothing else away from this episode. 1, Keith Strudler's shirt, horrifically ugly. 2, Sportish is now on Thursday at noon.
2016 All-Star game. 26. I'm the Nationals.
Do you know why I hate that shirt? Do you know why I hate it?
Not really.
You got that shirt as a gift.
Yes.
You got that shirt as a gift from an old intern on our old radio show.
No, he was never an intern. This is from David Hotchman.
Yeah, but it was passed to you through an intern on
that's
our
fair
old
enough.
radio show. And so when you got it, I was sitting right next to you and received nothing. And you can imagine how that made me feel. They go, "Hey, Keith, look, we got you this jersey." And I'm like, "Yes, and I got nothing."
This is like when I got the Roan apparel and I took 90% of it and handed out. By the way, Roan, give us a call. Look at us now. Well, I feel like we've grown as Roan has grown. We started as a little startup operation. Look at us now. They started as a tiny little startup operation, and now they're huge. I feel like it's time to renew that partnership. We once were. I'd wear Roan gear. You know that. We're talking about them already. We're not even sponsored.
Clearly, you wear anything.
You're so salty that I got this. You're so this has nothing. You love this shirt. You absolutely love this shirt. It's just that I got it and you didn't. It has nothing to do with the fact that you don't like the shirt. You love it. You love the shirt. Now I'm thinking about how mad you are. Here's my question. What's the over under on people last week when we shifted to noon at midnight on Wednesday? We're sitting there being like, here we go.
Well, I know there's at least one, because I don't watch us debut every week, but I was awake last week and I was like, oh, let's see how the episode went. And we weren't on. And you're like, I had no idea that we got kicked to Thursday. I knew we were talking about making the move. Yeah. They did not tell us, by the way, that was actually happening. It just started. And we found out probably at least 4 or 5 of you by the fact that we just suddenly weren't on. Now,
I'm assuming.
And what's sad about this, Keith, is it was not an immediate realization, right? Because there have been times where we did debut midnight Wednesday night and not been on, not because we were on at some other time, because we just weren't on.
Now, yeah, I mean, did you assume when it wasn't on, like, well, this is how it ends? This is how
I did. Yeah. And which, to be honest, is how I prefer to get fired. Like, I just want my key card not to work one day. Don't go through the whole rigmarole of like, hey, listen, the company's going through some tough times. We appreciate your contract. No. Just lock me out of the building. Let me figure it out for myself. Because that way I can concoct a scenario in my head where, there was some global extinction event and only I survived. And so now I obviously can't go to work because everybody I work with no longer here. So at least give me that where I can come up with my own scenario as to why I got fired. Don't tell me that you're taking us off the air. Just kick us.
I'll tell you what, you should never want to know why you got fired. It's never because it's never good. Because I'll tell you why you got fired. You're not good at your job. I understand. That's 90% of it. You're not, because I'll tell you what, it's hard to fire people. It's really, it's better. I mean, you know this. The best thing you do if someone's underperforming, move them to another division. It's really hard to fire someone. If you're getting fired, you're probably not doing your job. Now, obviously, a lot of people have been laid off because of downsides, and so that's a different situation. But if you are actually getting fired, I mean, we've been there. We've all gone through it. For me, it's usually because I'm just not getting the job done. And that's my, I'm confident.
If you have to fire someone, the dream scenario is that they resign. And this brings me to our first story of the week. Nike executive Ann Hebert has resigned as the vice president of North America. Why? Because her 19-year-old son was identified as West Coast Joe, a prolific Nike reseller who has made hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of dollars reselling sneakers. How has he been so successful at reselling sneakers, Keith Strudler? Well, he has said in a number of blog posts and things on social media, quote, "You just have to know the right people." Oops. The people was his mom, the vice president of North America at Nike. So now she had to resign for obvious reasons. You cannot have the leader of your North American division essentially gaming the market so your kid can get on the sneakers app and resell these things for hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's a tough way.
It's a tough way to go out. It makes for a very uncomfortable dinner that night. Right? Because this is one of those times when the quarantine really does not work well for the family, when everyone's stuck in the house for the next God knows how many months. And mom obviously will have quite a bit more at home time because she's been relieved for duties at Nike. There are a lot of questions to be raised here. I mean, a lot of questions. First off, I mean, look, I know, look, right now, if you were to rate my parenting skills on a 1 to 10 chart, 1 being awful, 10 being father of the year.
Yeah, we all know how 1 to 10 works.
Well, it could be 1's amazing and 10's awesome.
When is 1 ever amazing? When in the history of rate whatever on a scale of 1 to 10 has 1 been better?
Wouldn't that? But it seems the reason. Why wouldn't 1 be better? It's number 1. You're number 1. So, all right, on a 1 to 10, I'm somewhere in the negatives. How about that? All right. I'm not the parenting. The kids are raising themselves at this point. I don't know if they're illegally driving my car. Newsflash, my oldest is 13, but they seem to get places. So I understand. I am in no way should I be critiquing anyone's parenting skills. I mean, absolutely not. There are therapists out there who will send their kids to college based on the last year or 2 of my performance. That said, I do feel as if you should know if your 19-year-old is running a multi-million-dollar shoe business out of your garage.
No, you don't think she
knew?
The first thing. I think she knew. You don't
think she
how
knew?
Could she not know?
You think this was an inside job?
Oh, yeah, I absolutely think this was an inside job. I think it was an inside job because it's been reported that she declared that her son was doing this in 2018 or something, because it's obviously against Nike company policy for someone to be affiliated with reselling. She declared that he was doing this and basically said, look, it has nothing to do with me. He's doing this all on his own. It's all in the up and up. If you believe that, I got some swampland to sell you. Oh,
this is So of course, this exposes one of my vices, one of the things I'm not good at, which is reading the entire article. Generally speaking, I send you a headline. I'm like, oh, look at this. No, but I did not know. I did not know that. So I did not know that she had known that he was running this business. That said, you think she knew that he was buying them through Nike?
Here's the thing. When you're a sneaker reseller on the level that this guy was, you don't pick up like 2 pairs at a time. You have warehouses full of sneakers, and he was warehousing sneakers and using his mom's credit card, using his mom's employee discount. The Nike employee discount, I'm told, is extremely generous. So for her not to have known, you got to believe it's like Rick Pitino at Louisville if you believe she didn't know.
Interesting. So look, if she knew and she was complicit in this operation, she deserves to be fired, and obviously resigning was the right move. I was under the impression she wasn't fully aware. Now, so assuming she knew, this is completely smart. But I mean, this is like if your dad is a game show host, you can't be on the show.
Sure.
Right. Yeah. It's the same thing, right? If your family works for the lottery, you can't win the lottery and then go on My Lottery Dream Home. We understand that. It does circle back to the kind of more kind of substantial question here, which is this resale game is bananas. Really, it is. I mean, look, we've seen this now, and we talked about this, I think, off the air last week, the idea that people are now trading digital highlights, right? This idea that there's all these, I mean, Jeff and I may not understand cryptocurrency, and newsflash, we do not, but this is just another form of currency. The idea that these sneakers has such inherent like value built into them. I mean, look, there are things, this goes back quite a long way when they'd release the Jordans and there'd be lines out the street. And there was this ethical question of, should we be promoting products that are, kind of asking people to spend money they in many cases do not have, right? There are all of these questions, the materialism that it's, kind of promoting, all of the bad things that come out of this. I guess in some ways I really don't understand this sneaker game. On the other hand, I guess it's kind of the logical extension of kind of like the celebrity culture in the postmodern world. I mean, literally as we speak, my 13-year-old is writing his school TED Talk about the kind of fissure of sports and fashion, right? Of how athletes have become. Maybe I should have him because he actually knows more about this coming up on the program
segment.
No, but they very much live in this world where they see athletes come out with products. They know that has incredible value, which far, supersedes whatever the list price is going to be when Nike sells them. I guess the ethical question then becomes, but it makes sense because why wouldn't it make sense if we can ascribe monetary value to anything at this point?
Right.
To anything, right? In a postmodern world, anything, like we're so far past the point where gold and paper currency is what money actually is. It's whatever we value it to be. So obviously a shoe, particularly one that is often affiliated with a sports athlete that has his or her own kind of inherent value that props up the value of the shoe, it makes perfect sense. The question then becomes, are companies like Nike and Adidas acting in an ethical way by running these limited runs where they know what they're doing?
Well, not only do they know what they're doing, they got a piece of the resale as well. Like the sneakers app, Nike's got a piece of that. Like they are also getting a little bit on the secondary marketplace end of things as well. They are artificially creating scarcity, no doubt about it. I mean, I guess anybody who creates scarcity is artificially creating it because you can just make more. But I don't think sneakers is necessarily, for the kids these days is any different than, I feel like every generation has had their sneakers, right? Maybe it was cool cars back in the day. Maybe it was watches. Like, I think whatever you can ascribe a value to and a scarcity to so that people can go on the internet and find out, oh, hey, that version is rare and it's worth this much. This version is common and it's worth this much. It just becomes a status symbol. And so the fact that it's sneakers today or baseball cards, which is another market that's exploding, or virtual highlight clips, like you mentioned, as long as we all collectively agree on value and scarcity, people are going to want it as a status symbol. So, I mean, I'm not, I think sneakers are just the X. You could replace that with cars in the 70s or anything, in my opinion.
Yeah, the challenge. I mean, by the way, we have not had on Sportish yet. We've not had the opportunity for you to have one of your watch segments. I think the fans will very much appreciate.
I think they would. Fun fact about me, one of my hobbies is collecting vintage wristwatches. So there you go. If you'd like to hear more about it, my Twitter handle is down below. I'd be happy to jump in the DMs.
What's your current guilty watch pleasure right now? Like what have you got your eyes on? What are the fans?
I kind of don't right now. I kind of don't right now. Right now, I'm pretty happy with where the collection's at.
What's the most recent edition?
A couple of ones that I've gotten recently, and I guess I haven't gotten a new watch in a couple of years now, but a couple of the more recent choices have actually done quite well in terms of valuation. So I'm pretty happy about that.
You know what? I've given up on watches, and I'm now totally down to I wear nothing but my Garmin, but a stopwatch. Because I used to wear snazzy swatches all the time, which you hate.
So I don't hate swatches at all. I own a couple swatches. Okay. So you, who always make fun of me for only wearing a watch that tells time, wears a watch that does everything but tells.
No, time? It tells time, but it also tells me how many stairs I've climbed. Like it tells me everything. That's my new thing. I'm also into Zwift right now. That's my other big sports thing right now. That's where you get to ride. Oh, yes, you do. Of course you do. It's that riding app where you ride an indoor stationary bike and you race against people all over the world.
Like a Peloton?
No, the Peloton's where you got some trainers like, keep on going. You're awesome. You're awesome. Just pedal harder. Let's get a great workout today. This is going to be the best part of your day.
Right. And you don't get that on your app?
Well, we've talked about the Geoff Brault fitness app.
So wait, I'm sorry. You get all of the stationary indoor bike riding, but none of the positivity and motivation. That is the most Keith Strudler app that has ever been coded. Listen, I want to do all the thankless work and get none of the joy.
No, Zwift is where you're riding. It's like a real course, and there are people also riding against you. It just hooks you up and it controls your bike, and you get mountains and you go down, but you don't. And then people do give you like the hand slap as you go by. They give you like a thumbs up as you ride by. But no, I don't have.
It's like a virtual bike race.
I don't have some sweaty Scandinavian guy like getting into my grill, being like, "You're doing great. You're doing great. Just keep on riding."
Also, why were you so shocked that I didn't know what that app was?
Because there's like 1,000 commercials on for it. when you want, particularly during the Tour de France, I know how much you enjoy that programming.
Well, no, I only watch the Tour de France when my favorite cyclist, Tadej Pogacar, is racing.
Regardless, the challenge, getting back to the shoe game, and then I know we'll move on. The thing that I find challenging is for so many of us, shoes have a fairly utilitarian function. It's a disposable commodity, right? You wear them, they wear down, you get new ones. And that was just kind of the way I was, I've always viewed shoes. I've had a hard time shifting to thinking of shoes like people think about art. And that's what's a little bit confusing to me. But, I've never really kind of crossed that bridge of thinking in that, because to me, again, I like wearing shoes. I like, whether they're athletic shoes.
Bold statement. My God, cool down with those hot takes.
Nicholas Sparks, hot sports. That's another one of our concepts never come to fruition, namely because we've never actually gotten to Nicholas Sparks people to address that idea. I think he'd buy in right away. So I don't know. But I do think, look, I've never been a big fan of the shoe companies creating that scarcity, knowing what they're doing to kind of the consumers and knowing the kind of pressure. Look, particularly because so many of these consumers are under the age of 18. And I think that's the part that really is difficult. This is, generally speaking, you have 14, 15, 16-year-olds trying to spend money they don't have.
Have you ever been a collector? Like, is there anything you collect now? And did you ever collect anything as a kid?
I don't have the patience. I did collect. I mean, I collected football cards as a kid, but it was not because I wanted to, because I ascribed value to them. I actually these are players I liked. I liked having that card. I liked looking at it, maybe trading with my friends. I mean, I like the trading part. And I think a true collector would probably not like the idea of giving away their cards. So now it's not my thing. I'm not that patient.
So you have no adult collections. Like, it can be, anything, nothing.
I'm a man. Like, I don't.
He says his voice goes up 4 octaves.
No, I mean, like I have. So I actually, as you can tell, I've got a lot of sports paraphernalia and a lot of signed stuff. That's mainly because my dad collected a lot and I have a lot of it now, obviously. So I like it, but I certainly don't collect it. I think it's cool. So I think I'm one of those people that, like, I would say I think watches are cool. I have no interest in collecting them for value. Same thing with like comic books or anything, guitars, things like I see most things that I see for their utilitarian function, which is why I've never really cared about nice cars. To me, a commodity is to be used, not to be kind of collected.
For our next story, I want to take you deep in the heart of Texas. The Texas Longhorns have been fighting amongst themselves, and not the athletes, but graduates of the school and their football team over their school song, The Eyes of Texas. The players don't want to sing it anymore because of its racist history. And now this is not a direct racist history where the lyrics of the song are inherently racist, but when the song, I guess, first debuted, it was part of a minstrel show that featured actors in blackface. And there have been some lyric, the song that the melody is based off of has some racial undertones. And so players recently, over the past year or so, have said, look, we're uncomfortable with this song representing us. Wealthy boosters, however, and I like to think of them as the Texas good old boys, who are the ones that are the reason those people had $16,000 energy bills a couple of weeks ago. They are very upset about this.
Are we talking about 10-gallon hats? 10-gallon hats.
Oh yeah. Can you do, because you're from Texas?
Yeah.
Can you do a Texas accent? Like, can you do like a cartoonish, like I want like full Yosemite Sam?
I don't know. I mean, I'm afraid to try this on the air.
I mean, this is, it might come out on the spot.
It might come out like British by accident.
It's even better.
Well, at best, I'm going to do a John Wayne. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing those Longhorns get out in the field and play some football.
All right. So you went kind of like deeper and slower with it. I thought maybe you'd do a little bit more like excitable, like
let's get those boys out on the field. Let's get the Junction boys back together. Let's get some football out on our field.
So people
get some barbecue sauce on my hand, and I'll lick it off, and we'll throw that pigskin around. We'll win. We'll take those Aggies downtown.
So people that talk like that are very upset that the song might be going away. Jay Hartzell, the president of the University of Texas. I was evolving
almost into James Brown by the end. Like, I was just getting more like my voice was completely going wild.
It's too hot in the hot tub. Texas President Jay Hartzell has said that, look, he doesn't know what's going to happen with the song. Right now, it is under review. There is a committee that is looking at its history, trying to figure out how current students might be able to grapple with how they might be able to address the history of the song and somehow turn it into a positive. A lot of wealthy donors, and which I believe at the University of Texas is code for football fans and boosters of the football program, are very upset that not only that it might go away, but that the players don't fully embrace it to the point where several of them, and depending on who you believe, it gives you an idea of how many, whether it's one or two or 15 to 30% of the people that have emailed about this controversy, say that if they don't want to fall in line and honor our traditions, not only can they go play somewhere else, we're going to make sure that they can't get hired in this state. Essentially, we're going to ruin people's lives if they don't fall in line over this song. So this is quite the battle. And Texas is losing millions of dollars in donations from people that are upset at just even the fact that the school is looking at changing this tradition.
I would not want, I like that the president went to the wheelhouse and said, I got a solution for this. We're going to build it. We're going to get a committee together.
Yep.
Collective responsibility on this one. I'm going to follow the committee on this one. So if you're a college president, obviously there is no winning on this, because either way, and to be fair, regardless of your ideology on this, I think it's fair to understand that the people, often you hear people on either side of the argument critiquing the decision makers for being wimps or not having a backbone or not, understanding. The reality is people who make those kind of claims have probably never been in that decision-making process, understanding the stakes that they are dealing with. And regardless of your view on this, there are shades of gray in here. I mean, we may have a particular opinion on this, but I do believe you can make an argument for either side, whether or not I agree with that argument. I don't think this is as cut as like when we start looking at other schools, Ole Miss, some of these other schools where this was, I mean, it couldn't be tolerated. And certainly some of the universities who have changed their Native American names, that time had passed, but this is a little more nuanced.
Yeah, and I think you're right, because this bears, this should be underscored. The song itself is not inherently racist. Like, it is a bit of a stretch to get to this song is racist. Like, there is a clear line to those undertones, but it's not like there are lyrics in this song that directly anyone would look at through a 2021 lens and go, well, that is not acceptable today. The song itself is pretty benign.
Yeah, it is difficult. Look, I was actually having a conversation about something completely unrelated about images, and particularly in Zoom calls. I think people have to be very careful about what they have placed in their Zoom calls at this point. Because there are a lot of things that make certain people uncomfortable. And part of that has happened because in the world we live in right now, so many symbols, and that song is a symbol, have been co-opted by movements. And you're seeing that happen. I mean, you find me a flag right now that does not have some kind of inherent value built into it. I think we're gonna have to give up on flags totally. We're just never gonna be able to fly flags anymore. But that song, obviously, which, dates back quite some time, was co-opted, years ago. The question then becomes, can you take it back? And I think that's the question that we're probably grappling with, which is, once something has been co-opted by a movement, and obviously, kind of the racist lineage of a lot of what happened in America, and certainly in the American South, can you take that song back? And so, look, I don't. Certainly, it does not seem like a viable option to lay the blame at all of the athletes and say, that is not a good long-term solution for a university that still is struggling to get back to where it needs to get to. And if they think that making that claim by the boosters, by having the university have that be their platform, they can go ahead and hand every championship over to Alabama and Oklahoma until the end of time, because they're not going to recruit athletes with that as their kind of their line in the sand. So in some ways, the decision will be much more difficult because it is a player's game. And even at the college level, it is still, to some extent, it's a recruiting game. There's a reason why Alabama and Clemson win every year, and Ohio State. They get all the best athletes. Like, they are all the best athletes are going there. That said, I do think the answer, if there is an answer, and again, I don't have a horse in the race, if there is a desire to keep the song, and if the president feels that this is something that will help kind of move this, the university forward in a way that he wants to, there has to be some conversation about how the song and the movement is kind of taken back, I suppose. And I think it involves a deeper conversation than probably the one they're having, which seems to be a binomial.
If you are a person who thinks that this story is stupid, if you're a person who doesn't care about things like this, if you think, what does it matter? It's just a song. Or if you think, why can't those players just get over it? I'd like to propose an argument to you. You want college athletes to be paid because you want to know how stupid things like this, if you believe this is a stupid thing, stop happening. Pay the players. It's really that simple. Pay the players.
Because now makes it a lot more simple.
Boosters do not have the power to dictate what songs are sung at games. Athletes now have the agency to do whatever the heck they want, as long as it fits within the stipulated agreement that they're going to sign for their compensation. It makes,
well, they're also there. Once you're
much more cut and dry.
Yeah, once you're an employee, you kind of follow the rules of your employer, and if you don't like that employee, like so when people, I've never had a lot of patience for people that really complain about their jobs. I understand that's probably insensitive, but for things that are not really objectionable, just like, they don't do it the right way, and I don't like that, and I'm like, well, then get another job. Like your employer doesn't owe you much other than fair working conditions, and a paycheck, right? That's kind of what your employer owes you. And you owe your employer an honest day's work. When you don't have an employer-employee relationship, it gets a little like, what does a college athlete actually owe their coach and their athletic director? You're right. That would certainly change the calculus here, but it is not going to be easily solved. This is not as simple, and none of these were simple as kind of removing the changing the names of franchise. Look how long it took for the Washington football team to remove its name, and that seemed pretty cut and dry, and that only took 100 years. So my guess is this. If you asked me to predict, which no one did, my prediction is, boy, it's a weird time right now. I feel like they'll still be singing this song in a couple of years.
I think I agree. New Texas head coach Steve Sarkisian has made his point of view very clear. He came out and said, it's our song. We're going to sing it, and we're going to sing it proudly. Probably a stupid thing to say at this point, because Steve Sarkisian has to go out and recruit people who may not agree with that statement very much, or who may just bristle at the fact, as I would, regardless of what you feel about the song. Don't tell me what I'm going to sing and sing proudly. Like, I'll tell you what I'm going to sing and sing proudly.
What if he comes out? What if he came out and he goes, guys, we're gonna sing some show tunes when we get. Do you guys know? Does anyone know Phantom? We're gonna do Memories. What if they do like a chorus line when they get out?
$1 million idea. Next year in the Red River rivalry, the losing team has to sing a show tune about the other team's state.
Oklahoma, Oklahoma,
where the wind comes whipping around the plains.
They have to do it. They absolutely have to do it. They just get the music. They bring the orchestra rises from the pit, and they get out there and they sing.
I mean, they already have bands there.
This is our best bad idea ever. That you want to put some, because that rivalry really hasn't had some of the mustard, of some past years. I'll tell you what, when you got a locker room at halftime that's staring at a 14-point deficit, and they're trying to figure out who's going to be a tenor, like that's no one really knows the words. So in that situation, if you know you're going into that game, do you learn the song just to kind of hedge your bets? You got to, right?
I feel like you have to, right? You have to dedicate at least one practice period to learning the song.
Guys, look, I know we got some special teams work, but I'll tell you what, the Texas offensive line is looking very strong this year. I think we probably should get at least a number from Andy Got Your Gun in here.
Guys, we got 4 groups of practice today. 4 groups. We got offense, we got defense, we got special teams, we got the Sopranos. Sopranos over there. You are with Coach Hickson. Gonna need you to really sing it from the diaphragm, Sopranos.
We'll do tape sessions tomorrow at 9 a.m. Who is an E flat? Who is an E flat?
Gentlemen, tomorrow you come to practice taped, and I do not mean your ankles. I want to hear everyone recorded so we can decide how this arrangement is going to work. This is the best. I tell you what, suddenly the fourth quarter of every college football game has gotten so much more interesting.
This game may be a blowout, but you're going to want to stick around for the end.
All right, last thing we got to talk about. It's March, and that means that the madness is coming. The NCAA tournament is going to happen, and it is going to happen in what is, let me be frank, a prison-like environment for the participants. Now, obviously, it's a bit hyperbolic, but if you qualify for the NCAA tournament, if you're a men's college basketball player, you're going to Indianapolis. If you're a women's college basketball player, you're going to San Antonio. But those cities might as well be anywhere because you won't set foot outside in any of them. The protocols that the NCAA has released for how they are going to run this tournament are wild. To get into an NCAA tournament bubble, you need 7 consecutive days of negative COVID tests. While you're en route to the bubble, you must be masked and this is the first time I've heard this in regards to COVID, wearing goggles on the plane or bus. If you're bused, whereas normally you take 1 bus, you're taking 3 for social distancing. Sure. And how do we know social distancing will be maintained? Everyone's going to be wearing one of those sensors on their wrist that lets them know when they're within 6 feet of another player. Once you get to the bubble, you're in quarantine.
The hookup scene is going to be vastly reduced.
Once you get to the bubble, you're in quarantine for 2 days. You're in a room by yourself with meals being delivered to your door. Perhaps they'll let you outside for an hour of exercise. Except they won't, because they are setting up indoor gyms in the convention centers where you can essentially run around inside in this big open space. So you can't go run on the San Antonio Riverwalk or jog down to St. Elmo's for some shrimp cocktail if you're in Indianapolis. If you want to get off your floor, each team's going to have their own floor in their various hotels. You have to call up an elevator. And I don't mean like press the button outside the elevator. No. You got to call your elevator guy who will send the elevators up to your floor and only your floor so that you and your group of people can ride them together. It is an insane list of protocols that the NCAA has put in place to be able to have their men's and women's basketball tournaments. To the point, Keith, where now I'm wondering, if you make it, is it worth it?
I'll tell you what. If you're like a 13, like I'm trying to think of where it's worth it. Obviously, the teams at the top, your top 4 seeds, and your 1 through 4s that legitimately are like even some in the top that legitimately see a pathway to the championship. You're like, I'm going to get there.
Yeah, but I don't know though. Like if you're a one and done, happy to be there. Hey, we made it this far. The rest is gravy. Sure. You're getting out of there kind of quick. To win the national championship, you're in this for a month.
It's not conducive. It's not conducive to working with your agent, right? It's not all the things that you're trying to accomplish when you're trying to. Like I still remember the Sweet 16 when Cornell played Kentucky, and that was the John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins team, right? And I remember seeing the body language of the Kentucky team when Cornell was playing, like just trying to figure out, like, God, we got to lose a game because we're done with it. Like they're definitely that team. They lost the next game to West Virginia, a team that they were far better than. They basically had decided they were done playing college basketball by all accounts. They just could not find a way to lose to Cornell. I still do think, look, I think Gonzaga wants to be there because Gonzaga is a team that would love to win a national title. I think the 16 seeds want to be there. These teams, the teams that never make it to the tournament, they are going to want their moment in the sun. I'll tell you who sure doesn't want to be there. Like the 11-12s who are like, the worst thing that happens is they upset like the 5 or the 6 seed or something like that. And now they're stuck for another game to get demolished by Iowa or something like they're just not. That is the worst. The worst. This is one of those where, I mean, the goal in the NCAA tournament, unless you're really winning the title, is to get to the second weekend. That's always the goal, right?
Correct.
Because then you got a week of conversation. You are Big man on campus for 5 days.
Except this year you're not. You lose that this year because you don't get to go back to your campus and hang out with your friends and your family and your peers and do the interviews and have this big hoopla in your hometown. You don't get it. You're sitting in the same bubble you were in the week before.
So now you do not want to get past, though no one's going to that. I'll tell you what, those games, the second round games where you're playing from 32 to 16, you're going to see a lot of people bricking shots who seem to have no interest in getting there. So I would imagine, and look, you lose all the value of being in San Antonio. Indianapolis, honestly, inside of a hotel, outside of a hotel, who cares? Let's be honest. But San Antonio is a nice town. But you can't now. Let's be clear. You can't let anyone free in San Antonio. I think Texas just lifted all rules on everything. Literally, it just said no mask, no clothes, no nothing. I mean, and so you can't let anyone free in Texas at this point. But it does also give you a sense of how important this NCAA tournament is. And we said this months ago. If they don't have the NCAA basketball tournament, this whole thing is going to collapse. Literally, college sports might fall apart. And we've seen a lot of carnal damage this year of teams cutting sports. They have to have this tournament to continue college sports in its current form, way more than they had to even have the football season finished. They had to do this. And so I am sure, look, they're going to make a lot of money on television rights, but they're losing a lot of money putting this thing together. This is an expensive venture they're running right now. Those wristbands ain't free. And so it just gives you a sense of just how important this is to everybody.
$800 million. That is what the NCAA will make and distribute a large majority of to its member institutions if this year's men's basketball championship is played. So that's what's on the line. That's why the protocols are what they are. And if you read them, there's no reason this shouldn't work. I'm actually, at this point, I would be surprised if a team that qualifies for the NCAA tournament gets bounced. I mean, these are the most restrictive protocols for an event that I've seen during this COVID era.
Yeah. Someone's going to break out, though. Someone's going to break out. Yeah. How many college kids do you have locked? I mean, you tell me a situation in history when that many college kids have been locked into something and not found their way out. I mean, this is like the escape room.
And maybe that is the real March Madness. That's all we've got for this episode of Sportish. Thank you to our producer, Mike Wallace. He's Dr. Keith Strudler. My name is Jeff.
It's a great episode. It's a great episode.
Look, everybody should be energized to get back to work. First time we could ever end an episode by saying, hey, enjoy the rest of your day, everybody. Yeah. And don't forget to watch on YouTube.
Get on the YouTube.
And the podcast, Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, all of them. So you want to watch live, ftfnext.com, FTF. You want to get the YouTube, and you want to get the podcast. You need at least 3 listens to truly appreciate the genius of Sportish. We'll see you next week, everybody. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Sportish. See you next time.